Hello and welcome. Democracy in Africa is being tested as violence escalates in Cote d'Ivoire. So what are the chances this latest crisis could push the country into another civil war? Tens of thousands of people are fleeing the fighting between forces loyal to President Laurent Gbagbo and those who back his rival Alassane Ouattara. Comments. You can send an SMS or an email. We also welcome your phone calls onto the show. Joining me now from New York is Mantia Diawara, Director of the Institute of Afro-American Affairs at New York University. Professor Diawara says that Laurent Gbagbo must go in order to save his country from political chaos. And here with me in the studio is Augustin Duogi, a senior legal advisor to Mr. Gbagbo in the United States. He believes the president is being unfairly targeted. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me bring in Mr. Augustin Duogi. And I know you believe that President Gbagbo is being unfairly targeted. Why?
Well, first of all, let me say that anybody who is interested in the tragedy happening in Ivory Coast now, who wants to know the truth about it, has to start from this premise, that the election was only a pretext. What is happening in Ivory Coast is not electoral at all, except in name only. There's a good quote from Jacob Zuma, the president of South Africa, who recently said, what happened in Ivory Coast was not an election. But if you consider it an election, then President Gbagbo won. I challenge anybody who said Ouattara won to show what was wrong with the Constitution of the Ivory Coast, why the equivalent of the Supreme Court, having followed the Constitution and declare President Gbagbo the winner, why is that not acceptable? And why is it that after all this gyration and all these killings, people are asking the Constitutional Council, the equivalent of the Supreme Court, to swear in Ouattara? When it declares President Gbagbo the winner, it is not to be believed or taken seriously or accepted. But when they want to force Ouattara on the country, they ask the Constitutional Council to swear him in. It makes absolutely no sense. The real reason that you are watching the tragedy in Ivory Coast is that President Gbagbo, who is a Democrat, is a modern-day Mandela. This man spent 30 years in the opposition. He's not a violent man. He does not have a bank account outside of the Ivory Coast. He doesn't own property anywhere. But his vision is for the true emancipation of Ivory Coast. France is afraid of that because other former colonies would follow his example and France would be the big loser. That is what is at stake in Ivory Coast right now.
Well, let me bring in Professor Diawara again with an email, sir, if I may. We got this email in from Somalia. And if I could put this to you, Bashir Jama wrote in from Somalia saying, Cote d'Ivoire is experiencing hard times and escalating violence is a sign of regression. The conflict has halted the country's journey to a brighter future and civil war is inevitable if the situation does not improve. Now, what do you see as the worst case scenario for the country, sir? Do you see this being an all-out civil war risk?
Yes, the worst case scenario is also already taking place. People are being targeted in their homes in Ivory Coast. 3 days ago, women marching peacefully were shot dead. 7 of them were dead. They are going from house to house in Abobo. So the worst case scenario is taking place. 400 people have been killed. What else do we want? More than 450,000 people have left Cote d'Ivoire.
President, this came from Nigeria, from Khabir Salami, who says, I don't understand what UN forces are actually accomplishing in Cote d'Ivoire or what their purpose is. To me, it seems they are simple spectators.
No, I think they are fighting on the side of the rebels. You know, Professor Diawara mentioned 7 women being killed. This is a typical example of the lies perpetrated by the UN that they can use as an excuse to fight President Gbagbo. The incident he's talking about, the 7 women were not killed. Not one was killed. The tape was edited. It was a machination. And I have a copy of the whole tape. It's all over the place. When you look at the tape, one of the women, who is apparently dead because she's been shot at and she's laying in a pool of blood, she gets up. And one of the rebels said, no, it's not finished yet. Go back down. And you see this woman lying down again in what looks like blood. But this is a video that the world saw.
But most people are so strong.
Let me finish. I listened to you politely when you were talking.
We'll come back to you in a moment, Professor.
Yeah. So, you know, this is a picture that the whole world saw. The truth came out later, but it was too late. But I'll give you an even more telling example. The UN Security Council representative accused President Gbagbo of having Belarus deliver helicopter to Ivory Coast in violation of the embargo on arms. It was false. Belarus protested violently, and finally a public apology was issued by the United Nations to Belarus. But in the meantime, the damage had been done because the UN was using this as reason to put reinforcement behind its peacekeeping force. They are not peacekeeping. They want Ouattara to be president because France wants that to happen.
Well, I'll get on to the reasoning there behind in a second. Let me get back to Professor Diawara and ask you, sir, you wanted to respond, and then I'll get an email to you, sir.
Well, my argument is Gbagbo has been buying tapes like France Afrique to show that France is manipulating the elections. Now, if Gbagbo has a tape showing that these women were now really killed, you know that that tape will be all around YouTube, will be all around the world. It's not enough to say it. How come we have not seen it the same way we've seen the woman dead on the ground? How come we're not seeing it? Are you saying that YouTube is not working? Are you saying that the television are refusing your images? You and I are on Al Jazeera now, so it's not. If you could find a place to show it, if it's true.
I think you were saying it's available, Mr.
Are we glad to send a copy of it to the professor?
No, don't be glad, show it.
But you know,
no.
No, but you see, this is exactly, this is why at the beginning of the show, I said anybody who wants to know the truth has to consider this not an electoral thing. Look at the massive power, United States, United Nations, and France. They have intoxicated all the major papers in Europe. They take the side of Ouattara.
Let me ask you why you think they would like Mr. Ouattara to be president.
Here's the reason. Ivory Coast is very rich. And as I told you earlier, President Gbagbo's vision of running Ivory Coast involved total emancipation, freedom to deal with all comers. France does not accept that because it will mean renation for them. Ouattara is not from Ivory Coast. Ouattara and I came here in this country. I think I said that on your show earlier. We came here in 1962 on a scholarship program. There were two of them, including him, from Burkina Faso. And there were three of us, including me, from Ivory Coast. Now, if he can be made president of Ivory Coast, he does not care really what happens to the people there. In exchange, the people who back him can do what they want in Ivory Coast.
Okay.